In this video, we're going to learn how to use the VLOOKUP function in Excel. The VLOOKUP function is very useful for looking up data in a table. So the example we're going to use right now is we have some provinces and then what the sales tax rate is in that province, which includes federal tax for all you tax nerds. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is going to name this table. I'm just going to call it tax table to make my life a little easier. So let's do a concrete example of how to use VLOOKUP. I'm going to start typing a formula. I'm going to start typing the function VLOOKUP. Now, the first thing I want to know is what do I want to look up? So in this case, I want to look up the Ontario tax rate. So I'm going to specify where the table is. Unfortunately, I've given it a nice name, tax table. And now it wants to know, well, which column do you actually want from this table? So it looks in the first column, the very first column, it looks for a match. Okay, it's going to find Ontario in that table because Ontario exists. But then it wants to know, well, which column do you actually want to use? In this case, I want the second column. So I'm going to give a value of 2. The last parameter you'll notice is a Boolean value. It either wants true for approximate match or false for exact match. I'm going to specify false, and we'll explore this option later. That's everything we need to do a VLOOKUP. It's going to look that up in the table and see that this Ontario sales tax rate is 13%. All right. If I specify something, I could specify a different value. I could say look up Quebec, which has a very awkward sales tax rate, and it says it's 15%. Of course, it's just not showing all the decimal places we need. Now, what if I try to look up, my friend thinks he's in Washington, D.C., wants to know what our sales tax is. It's going to give an error message that says not available. It could not find DC in that column. All right, so that's an error message. So we could use our fancy if error function if we want. If error, say if we can't find the sales tax rate, we'll just say not in table. This will be a little friendlier version of what it did before. All right, and we can go back and let's do just to check to see one more time. Let's look up the sales tax rate in BC. We see that it's 12%. All right, so now let's actually use this in a practical application. We're going to go back to our sales example where we have some random people from Canada and we have their order, and now what we want to do is calculate how much tax is going to be on their order. So what I'm going to do is use VLOOKUP. I'm going to say look up that province in my tax table, and I want column 2 and false for an exact match. Great. It looks up the tax, but that's not quite what we want. We want to actually calculate the tax. So we're going to take that value and then multiply it by the order amount. And then fantastic, we now can see how much tax is going to be on each of these orders. And we now have a column that generates the appropriate level of tax based on the different provinces. All right, so this is a very practical example of where you could use VLOOKUP in your spreadsheets. Let's do one more example. Let's go back to our example over here. And let's say, for example, now we have a shipping amount as well. So this table is now, I've repurposed this table. It's not just for tax rates. I'm also going to include how much it costs to ship to each province. So let's say our company is based out of Ontario. So the shipping rate to Ontario is $5, but the rates to some of the other provinces are going to be higher. So shipping to Alberta is going to be $10, in British Columbia $12, Manitoba is going to be $8, Northwest Territories is going to be expensive, Quebec is going to be the same as Manitoba, and Saskatchewan the same as well. So now we have extra shipping rates added to our tax table. What I'm going to do is change the table now. Even though I've called it tax table, what I'm going to do is modify it so it now includes this extra column. So now we can look up the shipping rate. So let's go back to our spreadsheet and we're going to look up shipping. I'm going to do something very similar to what we did before. I'm going to VLOOKUP, look up the province in my tax table, and now I want column 3. So if you go back, we now want the third column value. So that's going to be column 3. And again, I'm still going to want to do exact match here. So now we can see the shipping rate, format that as a dollar amount, and then just copy that down to all of our customers. And now we can see the different shipping rates based on the province that they're located in as well. So just one more example. In this case, we're using a different column than we were using before. And in fact, if we look at the formula, the only difference between this calculation is using column 3, and this one uses column 2. All right, for our final example, let's tackle what that fourth parameter is about exact or inexact lookup. So let's create a new sheet here, and what we want to do is we're going to have a discount rate, all right, and based on a certain order size. So if your order size is between $0 and $500, you do not get a discount. All right, so let's do this. So your discount is going to be 0%. But if your order is above $500, then you're going to get a discount of 2%. If your order is over $750, then your discount is going to be 3%. And if your order is over $1,000, then you're going to get a discount of 5%. So we have different discount amounts based on how big your order is. So now what VLOOKUP does is it looks in the table and it finds the smallest value that still matches what you're looking for. So let's do some actual concrete examples. So I'm going to call this table discounts. All right, so now if I VLOOKUP and I look up the value $10 and I look it up in my discounts table, and I'm looking up the second column, and now I say true, approximate match. So it tells me if my order is $10, my discount is 0. Well, what if my order is $499? My discount is still 0. But as soon as my order is now $500, I'm getting a 2% discount. All right, and if I bump the order up to $750, it says my discount is now 3%. The big difference is now I'm going to enter the value 888. Now 888 does not appear in this table. So what Excel does is it finds the row with the smallest value that corresponds to the value smaller than what you were looking at. All right, so 750 is the smallest value in the table that is still less than or equal to $888. So it determines that your discount rate is 3%. So this function was developed for doing this kind of a lookup exactly, right? For thresholding different ranges and assigning different values to those ranges. So we can adopt this back in our main spreadsheet. Let's just calculate our discount, right? And what I'm going to do is VLOOKUP. Okay, in this case, I want to look up the order amount in my discount table. And I want the second column, which is going to be the actual range. In this case, I'm going to say true. I'm okay with an approximate match. And then my discount is going to be that amount times the order itself. All right, so let's view that as $1, and we'll calculate all the discounts that people are receiving. Great. And now we can calculate the final total. You know, take their order plus the tax plus shipping minus the discount they get, and now we've got full calculation to determine how much the final total amount is going to be for each customer. All right, so this is a practical example of how we could use VLOOKUP in a table. There's also an HLOOKUP function. It's very similar, except it looks up across rows and then finds the corresponding column to match. With VLOOKUP, we look in the first column, find the row we're interested in, and then look up the appropriate column. And that's a practical example of using VLOOKUP.
This is just a quick addition to what we had done before. I just want to clarify one more time how the last parameter in VLOOKUP works. If the value is true, then it uses inexact match. And I didn't mention this earlier, but this is very important to using inexact match. The table must be sorted by the first column. So the entries in the first column must be sorted from smallest to largest. They don't have to be numbers. They can actually be names and strings or dates or something like that. But they must be sorted from smallest to largest. If the last parameter, the fourth parameter, is false, then it uses the exact match and the table does not have to be sorted. So that's one last clarification on how to use VLOOKUP in Excel.